Am I dying or going to die? Am I getting infected by this awful illness? Am I having a heart attack? Oh my goodness, is that the awful symptom that I'm terrified of having? Am I getting sick? If you struggle with health, OCD, and anxiety, then the answer to those questions is probably no. But that is not going to stop your brain from doing everything in its power to convince you that all of those things are true, or at least to convince you of whatever the specific fear is for you, to convince you that that is true. So what is health OCD? How do you know if you have it? And what is actually causing you to struggle so much with all of these fearful thoughts and the obsessing over making sure that you can stay safe and healthy, and just all the intrusive thoughts and the fear and the anxiety and even the panic attacks and everything that can go with health OCD. And just a disclaimer to say before we go into the information in this video is that none of the information in this video is intended to give you any sort of medical advice or to tell you how you should act or what you should do. It is just sharing insights and things that I've found very helpful for health OCD, and that when I've shared with others, they have also found extremely helpful with their health OCD. But again, I'm not giving any medical advice, none of that. So however you take the information in this video is totally up to you. So health OCD is characterized by having obsessive thoughts about your health, and specifically about concerns to your health. So about all the things I mentioned before, right? Getting an illness, having something go wrong, of believing that you're gonna die, believing you're getting sick, all these different things, having a heart attack, etc. And then from all of these thoughts, and possibly intrusive thoughts with that as well, with those thoughts, you're probably gonna have lots of anxiety, possibly even panic attacks, and you're most likely going to have some sort of compulsion or multiple types of compulsions, which basically what that is something that you do to try to relieve the anxiety, to try to relieve the fear, and to try to assure yourself that you actually are healthy and safe. So that could be always looking up on the internet, looking up different symptoms, making sure you don't have that sickness. Or it could be always asking someone you know, making sure you don't have the illness. Or it could be always checking your blood pressure, or checking your heart rate, or checking, trying to prove to yourself that you don't have a specific symptom. So if what I have been explaining sounds familiar to you and you're like, holy cow, how did you get into my life? Like, this is exactly what I'm going through. Then odds are you're probably struggling with some form of health OCD. And while a lot of people understand more of what health OCD is, what most people don't know is what is actually causing the health OCD. What is causing your brain to fear those things so much. The first thing you've got to understand what is going on psychologically causing this, is that every human has 4 needs. And the first need is safety and survival. It is biologically, psychologically, it is just driven, hardwired into your subconscious mind, into everything inside of you, the need to stay safe, to stay healthy, to be able to avoid pain, to be able to avoid things happening that would prevent you from staying safe and healthy. Then because of this need that you have, when you memorize in your subconscious mind that this need isn't met or that it won't be met, then your brain is going to obsess over making sure that that need is met. That is when health OCD forms, is when your brain memorizes that there are these things, or maybe a specific thing that can happen that is out of your control, that can make it so your need is not met. And then your brain is going to obsess over preventing that thing. And the thing that is critical for you to understand is that the way your brain works is it thinks the only way it can protect you from a danger being something that will stop you from having your need met, or something that will stop you from being safe and healthy. Your brain thinks the only way it can protect you from this danger is by making you think about it, and by making you feel a negative emotion, usually fear, towards that thing. Your brain thinks that if you're thinking about something, if you're feeling lots of fear towards it, then that way you'll make sure that you do something to avoid it, that you'll do something to be able to protect yourself from it. So, with the health OCD, then your brain memorizes that it has to convince you that this awful, dangerous thing is going to happen because it thinks that the only way it can make sure you think about it and the only way it can make sure you feel fear towards it is if it can convince you that that awful thing is actually going to happen and that that thing will actually be awful. So that's why your brain is going to try to always be convincing you that you're going to have a heart attack, or always be convincing you that you're going to get sick in that specific way or in lots of ways. It's always going to be trying to convince you that that awful health threat is happening, is because it thinks that way you'll make sure you think about it and you'll make sure you feel fear towards it so that you can make sure you protect yourself from it. Because fear in general is actually a positive thing that our brain does on purpose to try to protect us and to try to make our lives better. For example, if a tiger starts chasing you, it is very important that your brain makes you think about that tiger, that it makes you aware of it, and that it causes a ton of adrenaline, a ton of fear, so that you can try as best you can to run away and escape that tiger. But when fear and the fear response becomes a problem, in the case of OCD, is when your brain memorizes that there is always a threat. So it's basically your brain telling you that there is always a tiger chasing you. Not just when there's actually a tiger, but all the time. So in the case of health OCD, your brain is not just telling you that there's a health concern when there's a health concern. No, your brain has memorized that it has to always be convincing you of a health concern, because that's the only way you can make sure you avoid all and any possible health concern that could ever happen. So the example to give with this is, let's say you were walking through a jungle, and in that jungle you knew that there were thousands and thousands of hungry, vicious tigers. Then when you're walking through that jungle, your brain would always be telling you, you gotta look out for the tigers, watch for the tigers, right? And you could see a squirrel run through the tree and you'd be, boom, oh, that's a tiger, right? Or you see the wind move a branch and you're like, oh, shoot, tiger, right? Because your brain is gonna be so obsessed with seeing any possible tiger in that jungle, and your brain is going to be obsessed with trying to convince you that everything is a tiger, because that's the only way your brain thinks it can protect you from any possible tiger. Except in this case, with the OCD, you're not walking through that jungle that's dangerous. Instead, you're walking through a place with no tigers, and yet your brain is still telling you there's thousands of tigers that are going to attack you, right? That's the way to look at it, except with the health concern, the health problem, the heart attack, the illness, whatever it is, instead of the tiger. So the same way that when that little branch moves, you're like, tiger, even though it's not a tiger, it's the same thing with the health problem, right? Whatever thing happens, your brain goes, oh my goodness, I'm having a heart attack. And it's like, no, you're not actually at all. But your brain is going to try to convince you, and it's going to distort reality to make you think that every single thing that happens is evidence of that danger happening, even when it's not. So in the case of OCD and health OCD, the danger is not an actual danger. The danger is a program or a pattern that you've memorized in your subconscious that is always telling you there's a danger. Like, I want you to get this in your head, really think about this. You could be the safest, healthiest person in the entire world. Like literally, you could be perfectly healthy, and your brain would still find 10 different reasons or 100 or whatever to convince you that that awful thing is going to happen to your health. That awful danger is going to happen. Because with this pattern, this program you've memorized, it's just a program that's always running, that's always going to distort reality, that's always going to imagine things up, that's always going to change the way you're perceiving your life to try to convince you of that danger. So it literally, the fact that you're thinking and feeling something has nothing to do with reality when you've memorized these patterns of the OCD. Instead, it just means you've memorized this pattern. Now, does this mean that you will never have anything bad happen to your health? Not necessarily, but 99.999% of the time, or whatever it is, everything your brain's telling you is just going to be a lie. And even if something bad were to happen to your health, it would have nothing to do with the fact that you're thinking and feeling fear towards something bad happening to your health. Because your brain's always going to tell you that no matter what. So the fact that your brain's telling you that and you're having the thoughts and the feelings with the OCD that you've memorized, that doesn't determine reality. That's always going to happen. right? So just because you're thinking and feeling something doesn't make it true. Instead, you can recognize that all the things that your brain is triggering, it's all just from that pattern trying to convince you of the lies, trying to convince you that that awful thing is going to happen. And instead, you can choose wisdom, and I can't give you medical advice of what actions you should take when you're fearing that you're having a heart attack or whatever. I can't tell you what to do there. But what I can tell you is that you can make the decision out of wisdom that you think is best for your life instead of just automatically listening to everything that your brain is telling you. So a couple helpful analogies that can really help you internalize and visualize and see what is going on psychologically for you. First thing I want you to do, this is going to sound silly, but it's really powerful, is I want you to imagine that there is an elephant in the room with you, this elephant juggling this beach ball and just kind of stomping around while it's juggling this beach ball. Imagine that for a second. So when you were imagining that, I'm guessing that you didn't yell, you didn't scream, you didn't take out your phone and start taking pictures. You didn't go like, what the heck, how did this elephant get here? Like, that's crazy, oh my goodness. I'm guessing you didn't do any of that. If anything, you probably kind of laughed and giggled like, what the heck, this is weird, or just kind of smiled or did nothing. It's like, why? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you yell or react in any of those ways? It's because you knew it was just your imagination. You knew it was just a thought. You knew there wasn't actually an elephant, so you didn't have to react in any of those ways. Well, when you can understand what is happening with the health OCD, and you can understand that your brain has memorized a program, a pattern that is always going to try to convince you that there's that health problem, when you really understand what's going on with the OCD, then you can know that all of the thoughts, all of the images, the thoughts, the things your brain's trying to convince you is going to happen, all of it is just imaginary elephants. That's all it is. That's it. It has no more reality than that elephant that you just imagined. That's all it is. And you're probably saying, okay, but it doesn't feel like that. Like in the moment, it feels so real. It feels so convincing. Of course it does. Your brain thinks it has to convince you of that danger because it thinks that's the only way that you'll be able to make sure you stay safe and meet your needs. So the more convincing it is, you can know, yes, of course it's convincing. My brain wants it to be convincing. And guess what? Your subconscious mind, it knows you perfectly because it is you. So it knows exactly what thoughts, what images, what memories, what feelings to trigger to convince you that that awful thing is actually happening. And it's always going to be trying to tell you that because it's a program, it's a movie that's just playing in your mind that your brain has memorized to always be playing. And the hardest part is probably the feelings. It feels so real. It feels, there's so much anxiety, there's so much fear, that pit in your chest, that, or even the symptoms feel real. It feels like there's chest pain. It feels like you have that physical symptom, whatever it is. So a couple analogies that can help you with that is, first off, during World War II, there was a doctor that was treating injured soldiers. So these soldiers were getting shot, they were getting all these super painful injuries. And at one point during the battle, this doctor ran out of morphine. He ran out of the pain medicine. But instead of sending the soldiers away, instead this doctor started giving the soldiers saline solution, which saline solution does nothing medically to alleviate pain. It does nothing to get rid of the pain medically. But the doctor told the soldiers, here's your morphine, the pain's about to go away, this will get rid of the pain. And because the soldiers believed and expected so much that the pain was going to go away, and the crazy thing that happened is that like 90+% of them had a dramatic removal of the pain. So either there was a dramatic decrease in the pain or the pain went away entirely for these soldiers just because they expected it so much. So when your brain is expecting so much or trying to convince you so much that you are going to have a heart attack, then it can absolutely create the feelings of you having a heart attack. And that's why it can feel so real if I'm having chest pain, even when you're not having a heart attack. Is because your brain can create those feelings. It can create those sensations because It's trying to convince you so much that you are, and because it's fearing and expecting so much that, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack, that it's actually going to make you feel like you're having one, even though it's not causing you to have one. Another way I love to look at this is, if you wanted to right now, could you feel yourself wearing your shirt? Could you feel it on your arms, your chest, whatever? Yeah, if you wanted to, you could. But usually we don't, because it doesn't matter to us at all. It's just a feeling that's there but means nothing. Once you understand what is going on with the OCD feelings, that it's literally just your brain causing a sensation, it's just your brain causing physical feelings to happen because it's distorting reality and lying to you and trying to convince you of that awful fear. Once you understand that, then that feeling, the fear, the anxiety, whatever it is, that feeling is just a very uncomfortable shirt. That's all it is. It has no more significance, no more reality or importance or whatever than being able to feel your shirt. Where it's like, yeah, the feeling's there, like I'm feeling it, cool. But who cares? It means nothing. It just means my brain is imagining that up and causing that feeling to happen, because I've memorized a pattern in my subconscious that causes that to happen all the time, not because there's actually a danger. So now that you understand all this information, again, I can't promise you that nothing bad will ever happen to your health, or that you will never have a fearful thought that could be true. But if you do have health OCD, then the fact that you're experiencing those thoughts and those feelings doesn't make it true, because your brain is going to tell you those same thoughts and feelings over and over again, no matter what is happening. And it's always going to be trying to convince you of those terrifying things. Right? So you can make the decision that you are going to take the action, that you are going to believe whatever you think is best for you, and just recognize you don't have to be a victim to your mind. You don't have to just think that, oh, because I'm thinking this, it must be true. Because I'm feeling this, it must be real. No, it very well could be just the patterns, just the OCD lying to you. So that is a decision that you can make for yourself out of wisdom, deciding on whatever is the most empowering, whatever is the best thing for you in your life. And that is the thing that I would challenge you to do, is to take that power back over your life and start doing the things that you truly believe are best for you, instead of just being ruled by all the thoughts and feelings that are always getting triggered by the patterns that you have memorized. So if you found this video helpful, then make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. They'll be going more in depth on how you can conquer anxiety, how you can conquer OCD, so you can create more freedom in your life.